Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Language of Spirit show. I'm your host, Andrew Fritz, and today I have two special guests with us. They're both directors at the Psychic Horizon Center in Boulder, Colorado. And I'll start with Trish. Trish loves being part of the community of Psychic Horizons. She has an advanced degree in psychology and neuropsychology and started practicing in the 1990s. Trish eventually found herself studying a variety of energy psychology methods, truly seeing we are spirit with a body. She loves seeing students finding their inner strength and beauty that they have, with laughter being a key component. It's always a good one. As a mom of three, she has learned to go within, discover her own answers and the value of using her energy tools every day. She loves sharing these tools with her clairvoyant students. So welcome, Trish.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And then Katie. Katie teaches the popular How to Heal Yourself and How to Read classes to beginning clairvoyant students. She loves watching students wake up to their intuitive abilities, begin to rediscover their authentic selves. She brings to the table decades of experience in energy healing, energy body healing, pet communication, which is pretty cool, and curiously technical musical theater. She is a devoted student of human nature, has a black belt in compassion, which is, I love that. That's awesome. And her favorite tool is amusement, which is a wonderful tool. Katie can't wait to see you in class. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I want that black belt. I got that.
I can help you. I can help you. Just call me.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be one of the questions is, how do I acquire that black belt in compassion? Because that's an important one. I'd like to kick this off with an important question. I like to kind of ask this to everybody that comes onto the show. And so maybe, Katie, I'll start with you. When and how did you get into spirituality? What did that look like for you?
Okay. I was about 30 years old. I'm 61 now. And I'd gone to visit a friend in New York City, and she busted out a set of oracle cards. And it was Jamie Sams, David Carson, the medicine cards, which are Native American. It's a beautiful little book, and it comes with a deck of cards. There's like 44 of them or 46 or something. And they're all paintings of North American wild animals. Oh. And she broke that out, and we asked some questions and threw down some cards. And I just said, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
So I would call that, for me, that was the beginning of a trail of breadcrumbs that has led me to where I am right now. That's the easiest. It kicked a door open. It wasn't a nudge. It was like, go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so from there on, I just grabbed everything I could get my hands on. Everything metaphysical to me was totally fascinating.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Trish? When did that start, and what did that look like for you?
Well, mine's a little longer, but I think it started when I was young. I mean, I was a sensitive soul, and I realize now I was always reading the room and reading people. Mm-hmm. And I had we went to church every Sunday, mm-hmm. But my parents were looking for something too. They were kind of on that cusp of metaphysical world. So I was exposed. They did something called the Omega seminars, which was not associated with that Omega, the bigger, but it was a lot of meditation, a lot of affirmation work. Mm-hmm. So as a child, I was, my like going to bed prayer was mm-hmm. saying, I like myself 10 times.
That's a good one.
We also had to say, I like or I love my siblings and everything. And sometimes you just didn't want to do that. But, and then I looked at my path and I realized, my dad, I remember he was a businessman. you know. And I remember him coming home from one of those seminars and saying he read this woman,
Mm.
complete medical intuitive reading.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, God, what is that about? And I kept searching. Like, I studied psychology, and I went in. The first class was brain behavior that just lit me up. And I was like, what is our brain doing? What is consciousness? I don't get
Right.
it. So I started studying it, and I, went to grad school. So I'm all the student, and I loved what I was doing. And I went to school in Tucson, Arizona, and Andrew Weil was there, and he wrote like spontaneous healing. So that was kind of around. And I remember in my early 20s, Joseph Campbell with Bill Moyer did this interview, and I saw this huge transition. Like Katie talks about the tarot card,
Mhm.
or the cards, the deck she was
Yep.
talking about. I remember this situation where some young woman who had some heinous cancer, and she was getting some lethal dose of some medicine that helps cure the cancer. And
Right.
they paired it with the rose of a smell and a pitcher. And pretty
Mm.
soon they didn't have to use the drug anymore.
Ah.
And she was able to heal using all the beauty of the drug, but not the side effects. So I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Use my language.
No, you're
So,
good.
that path. And I just think about all the different things I was on. Like Katie said, it kind of, and my brother had some really funky stories where
Mm.
he'd dream, and they were real, what
Oh.
happened.
Mhm.
And I just had this, I started studying what I would call energy psychologies.
Mm. Mhm.
And that just led, at one point, I was listening to Lisa Garr. Do you remember her? Did anybody remember her? She had a
No.
radio show way
Mm.
back, and she'd bring in like Wayne Dyer and all these Bruce Lipton and all these big names, and I would listen to it, and then you could like study them. And Michael Tamura, who I heard was on this show,
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
he he really lit me up, and he does a lot of this work, right?
Yep.
Psychic, everything. So I started studying, and then he came to town.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like, I'm going. And I swear, in the middle of that, Katie, he looked right at me and said, and if you want to do more of this work, you should go talk to Mary Bell and Hope, who were the original people that started Psychic Horizon Center in 1994. So
Ah.
I'm like, oh yeah, sign me up. And so I
That's
just, there's lots of little tidbits too, but like
yeah,
Katie said, it's just led on a path.
Yeah,
that's so
and if excuse me, but I just wanted to comment that, both of us probably were born highly empathic, right?
Mhm.
So, Trish had some outlets, right, for that with her, because her parents were interested in those kinds of topics. And for me, I stuffed it as far down as I could get it
Yeah.
and just sat on it. And so it was actually just that door opening moment. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because that's always something that I like to talk to the students about,
Yeah.
is is that feeling from the time you're little, that you're always picking up other people's feelings and thoughts and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And then I imagine you both of you at some point, you get to a point where you're starting to learn like a clairvoyant style meditation and getting into like a clairvoyant training or these type of psychic trainings. When you're going through those, were were you starting to have memories kind of pop up of when you were younger and going, oh, that's I was psychic then, or this is the experiences I was having, and maybe I now I have more clarity or certainty about it, or wow, I totally forgot and suppressed that, and now wow, now I can see it so clearly now from this kind of years later from that. So either of you experienced that at all? Or
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
don't you think, Trish, we've got our students, right? And we're leading them through exercises, and they might say, oh my gosh, I can totally see something that happened when I was a kid. Or but they're also saying things like, oh, whoa, there's my great grandma. And by the way, I never met her, right?
Uh,
So they're pulling in these other awarenesses that they have, that they're hauling around all this stuff, and they haven't thought about it in years, because now they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s,
right.
Yeah.
you know.
And
Yeah.
just learning too, as a student, I remember, not really knowing this clairsentient, which is,
Mm.
for people out there, that second, the ability to really sense and feel energy. And I was like, oh my God, that is wide open. Like
Mhm.
I sense and feel, and I want to heal everybody that I come in contact with.
Yeah.
And so allowing, as a student in Psychic Horizon, in the beginning class and then the year-long program, you learn to quiet that down
Mhm.
so that you don't see everything. So you can start trusting that intuition and get more of your certainty and be able to see that all. But the big thing for me as a student was
Yeah.
learning how to shut down my analyzer
Ah,
Yeah.
and really trust that intuition. And as you said, in that clairvoyant space, one of the things we say throughout our program is just see and say. Because if
mm,
you're trying to interpret,
Yeah.
you're in with your analyzer and all your pictures.
got it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's a huge one. I think maybe you can speak a little bit about this for people that are interested in meditation and maybe they've tried on their own and they go to close their eyes and most people when they think of meditation close their eyes, maybe focus on breathing, um, and then they start to think about oh, did I leave the stove on, or did I pay that bill, or what did that person that said that thing to me the other day, or all these things start to pop up. um, uh, how would you address that, or speak to someone that's like, "Oh, I really want to get into this but I'm running into these initial obstacles."
Well, one of the cool things about our programs is that the meditations are pretty structured, but
Mhm.
not pretty structured. They are structured. So we bring students in. You probably know this if you've worked with Michael Tamura. You bring a student in, and then you teach them how to set up their own space, manage their own energy. And so we're in each of our classes, and also in the psychic readings that we ask students to give, we're helping them get grounded, run their earth and cosmic energy, clean out their center of head, make sure their aura looks nice and tidy and ready to go and doesn't have any holes in it or anything like that. And so, we're guiding them through. And for me, it was a way easier form of meditation
Mm.
than sitting by myself,
Ah,
closing my eyes and just trying to get into that space that
right.
doesn't involve the grocery store and your kid and the dog wants to go for a walk, right?
Yeah.
So it's a guided meditation, and that can be a really great way to get that introduction. That's my
Nice.
2 cents. Trish?
Definitely. And, there's so many different forms of meditation. And how do people think they have to quiet down and, you know, it's a much more fluid thing, I think. And when you give yourself permission to hold that space, and like Katie said, sure, and I've heard you do a meditation where you're talking about grounding, and grounding is the first thing we do, and it quiets your body, but we bring you into your body so that you can have more of your own information. And one of the things we do sometimes is we say, we all have those grocery lists, and some days are harder for me than others, definitely. And
Right.
some days I love being with a group because then I can just let go and follow the voice. But, it's also doing tricks like, and I wouldn't call them tricks, tools, where I say, hey, put your grocery list, the problems into a bubble and put them outside the door.
uh,
Yeah.
You can have that all back. Now, even in your own meditation, when I'm at home, sometimes I just have to do that. But the more I can quiet, and of course, Katie and I, and probably you have been doing this a while. So, I must admit, there are some days where I'm like, I have a hard time.
yeah.
Me
Oh yeah.
But
too. Me too.
in the class, it's a beautiful opportunity. And, you have the vibration and energy, even though everybody's learning how to hold their own space and have their seniority on how it's doing for them.
Yeah.
They also, you're in a group. So all of a sudden you can match kind of that vibration
Yeah.
Ah. Mhm.
and just be, but we lose. And sometimes you go unconscious and you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah. That happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that happen many times. So
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But meditation, it's an interesting thing. I mean, sometimes I'm like, okay, let the noise in. Because what happens when you stop resisting the noise, I swear sometimes you can let go of the noise. And noise being all those voices in our heads, right?
Yeah.
If we're like, get out, get out, get out, sometimes they're like, no, I'm staying.
That's a great topic. Maybe we could talk about that. Just being in resistance and then maybe getting out of resistance. Can you talk about that a little bit? So I'm sure everyone can relate to, getting in resistance to anything out there. But you could maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Go ahead, Trish. You have a thought bubble. I can see it.
I do have a thought bubble. Part of it is, and what you're learning, especially through our program, is having an awareness.
Mhm.
And so having an awareness of when you're in resistance and when you're not. And so some of that energy is just being able to go, wow, Katie told me to do something, let's just say, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. But I do want to do it. But so that resistance and non-resistance, just in the beginning, it's having an awareness that it's there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then once you know it's there, you have more of a conscious choice of what you want to do with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
And so I can be like, gosh, I'm really resistant to Katie. I'm picking on Katie because I love Katie. And what is it? And it's usually something within me, right? That's like, some picture it's triggered in me. And it gives me a beautiful opportunity to say, huh, do I still want to live with that resistance?
Uh-huh.
Or not. Anyways, that was my thought bubble, Katie.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
I like that.
I just want to add something about this is a story that I tell my students.
Hmm.
And when I was a little kid, I probably had this dream, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times. It felt like a million.
Hmm.
But I was probably up until I was maybe in my early teen years. And the dream was I was being chased by a bear, and the bear was getting closer and closer and closer. It was chasing me through the neighborhood that I lived in.
Mhm.
And the bear was going to get me, and it was going to be bad, you guys. So in the dream, inevitably, the bear would get super close, and I would think, okay, this is it. I'm going to get eaten. And I would turn around and look at the bear, and the bear would take the head off, and it would be one of the neighbor kids. And not only, it wasn't a neighbor kid I knew, but I knew it was a neighbor kid. And just a cute, blonde, bright, smiling, cheerful, like, hey, Katie, how's it going?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. I was an adult before I understood that all the things that scared me as a child, it was multitudes,
Mhm.
that those things weren't actually what I thought they were. They weren't real. To
Right.
me, that's one of the stories I tell in resistance class.
Mm.
Because resistance, often when you turn and look at it, it turns out to not be what you expected. You are resisting a story that you made up, which is
Right.
probably a lie.
Right.
It's not real. And when you turn and look at something, usually it's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. It's not so bad.
That's a great example and story. I like that a lot. So it sounds like for someone that's able to kind of move past the resistance or just let it be, they can start to look beyond and see the truth. Does that kind of sound right? Or
When my feeling is when you stop resisting, you get not only more information, but you get different information.
hmm, got it.
And then you can shift your perspective because it's not what you thought.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think in all our classes, resistance is a big energy we work with.
right.
Yeah,
So
we teach a whole class just on that.
yeah, we do have a whole class.
Mhm.
And it's an energy that we look at within each of our pictures.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
The pictures being those lies or those creations or those programmings that we all have,
Right.
something our mom gave us, our dad gave us, our ancestors,
Yep.
society, religion. Oh, we just collect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sort of, I mean, I think it's fair to say anytime something really bugs you, it's really getting to you, you have an element of resistance. So
Sure.
it goes across so many different topics and beliefs and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Um, so I know both of you are teachers, directors. I guess was there a certain point that you became aware of? Oh, I think I really want to teach this stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about that, waking up to that, and then just what has your journey been like as a teacher? Um, I imagine being a teacher, a psychic teacher, you're almost learning even more than maybe when you were students in the past. But yeah, anybody that wants to start on that topic, that may be fun.
I,
Yeah.
I
Go
mean,
ahead, Trish.
we probably have both a lot to say, but one of the things
Yeah.
that just came up is how often, especially as I started, so we have a how to heal yourself basic class that teaches the basic tools. And then from there, those are tools that we use throughout all our programs,
Mm,
and I'm laughing because when I started teaching the Clairvoyant program, which is our 13-month program where you really go in depth and you look at resistance and you look at all
sure.
these different energies. So every week it's a different topic. I'm laughing because how often I'd be like, I don't remember ever learning this. Here I am as a teacher. So you're 100% that being a teacher, and now it's been many years, and I've grown and taught different classes and done different things. How much it's a gift for me,
Mm,
to be able to use these tools every day, and then also to just be able to constantly see, and sometimes um, and and just to watch our students have more awareness and see
mm,
their growth.
right.
It's their own journey, and part of being a teacher is really about being a neutral with compassion. I'm getting a black belt on compassion.
Nice.
You can do it.
We have one. But and bringing we set our classrooms in amusement, kindergarten, neutrality.
Nice.
Amusement is such a vibration that just helps energy move, right?
Mhm.
When I know sometimes, and Katie and I have talked about this, where we get serious and something we got something really important to tell you,
Yeah.
and that kind of just you just see the energy go, tight.
Right.
And kindergarten is really about, it's not about dumbing down, which sometimes people get lit up by that word.
Mhm,
I notice, especially beginner students,
mm,
it's really about bringing in that element of allowing yourself to make mistakes and
mhm,
have fun and explore. You think
right.
about kindergarten, it's like, oh, let's do this and do that, and let's pour these water into cups, even though they'll spill, allowing.
Yeah.
And so as a teacher, just really practicing neutrality.
Right.
And I don't even remember what your question was.
Oh yeah, you're answering it. So
Right.
yeah, just your journey as a teacher and just that whole process and yeah.
And let me, and I'll probably say more, but Katie, let me just say this. One of the things I love about being a director and a teacher is
Mhm.
hearing people's stories and
Ah.
these events that have happened in their lives where maybe for the first time they have permission to share it,
Mm, right.
and be like, hey, when I was a kid I saw this about, and they were shut down for some reason, or they were too afraid to share, or their parents threw a bunch of religion, like, don't be doing that.
Yeah.
So one of the gifts as a teacher and director is every day I get to, you get those shivers sometimes where you're like, oh my God, that was so cool, thanks for sharing that.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right, Katie.
Yeah, while you're talking about that, and sometimes a student will say, especially a brand new student, they'll say, this is going to sound kind of weird. And I'll say,
Probably
Yeah,
me.
you have no idea. Yeah. So there's just a lot of magical things that are happening to these people, and they don't think it's magic because of, mom and dad and whatever.
Right.
And so they come in and now they have a community. And this is what I get so excited about. They have a
Mhm.
community where they can they can speak the language.
Mm.
And we say, oh yeah,
Right.
I know all about that. So um that's been one of the greatest things about being a teacher, is having all these, I call them my ducklings. I don't know if they
Mm.
like that or not. Some of them think it's funny, but you bring these kids in, these youngsters, and they're not even young, but they're what we call clairvoyant, beginners, they're babies, right?
Mhm.
And they come in and they've got these stories and they're similar to my story. Like,
Mm.
I can't stop collecting other people's energy and it's literally making me crazy.
Right.
So, and then I can say, I've been there, and we're going to go through this process and you're going to learn how to deal with that, and it's going to be magical. But for me, I have always wanted to share all this stuff with people because it's been completely life-changing for me.
Right.
And so that led me to the center, just to help kind of get a handle on my own mental health and my own journey. And
Mhm.
then once I was there, thinking, oh, I could teach this. I would like to teach this.
Mhm.
So it's been a bunch of breadcrumbs that have just been calling to me the
Mhm.
whole time. And I just follow and say, okay, I guess this is my next step. I guess this is my next step.
Yeah.
Um, so in some ways I've sort of found myself in this position,
Mm.
but realized that it's something that I've been just underneath my consciousness, something that I have been
Mm.
striving toward for a very
Right.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my favorite part about this type of energy work and clairvoyant practice is the waking up. That's what I have a great affinity for is waking up. And there's always seems to be these new levels of waking up more to who you truly are. Um, and so I imagine, yeah, seeing, your students and people at the school, kind of seeing that in them and going, oh yeah, I remember that happening to me, or just being able to watch other people grow and change, and is probably a profound
Yeah.
experience.
Oh, it's huge. And I just, it reminds me as you're talking that when students first come in, it's like looking at an old Polaroid. It's not quite in focus, right?
Mm.
And so it's like the person is a little blurry, and then there's a whole bunch of other people behind them, and they're even blurrier, and the colors have faded, right? And at the end of the first year of clairvoyant training, it's like you have this sharp, beautiful, focused photograph. And
Ah.
that, to me, that's the students every week, they're clearing more energy, more energy, more energy. And by the end, you're seeing a whole lot more of who they really are. It's
Right.
really cool. Wouldn't you say, Trish? Just like,
Oh,
even just glancing at a student,
yeah.
6 or 8 months in, you can see transformation.
Mm.
Amazing.
It is amazing. And then, you also have the opportunity, both Katie and I do professional readings.
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
that's just an intensive um, opportunity for people to see your students and the people you read at their soul level. We
Mhm.
all carry around all this energy of, what we think. Maybe someone threw, you're a clumsy kid, and so they're clumsy, so you get to kind of clear that energy to see who's underneath. And
Right.
what Katie, but in our class, it's really having them experience it and giving them their own information, their own seniority. Sometimes the students like, well, that's not the way I want to do it. I'm like, okay, it's not me to say you must do it this way, because this
Right.
is the way you're going to do it. And
Yeah.
but I always am like, try it
Mhm.
Right.
and just experience it. But one of the things too, I think sometimes Katie and I have talked about this, that allowing the students to experience. So a lot of, especially like right now, I'm teaching the graduate level, and Katie's teaching the clairvoyant level.
Ah.
Is especially in the graduate level, we call it peeling the onion, because you're
Mm.
just peeling the onions to get. Is so much of the class is done in a meditation where they're doing
Mm.
the energy, they're moving the energy. and, getting out of that analyzers, that cerebral, and just experiencing things in class,
Mm,
hopefully taking it into their world.
right.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that you. Oh, I'm sorry, Katie. Did you expand on that,
No,
or?
I was just agreeing with what she was
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned doing readings, professional readings. Can you talk about that? What is for people that may be listening and don't know or kind of have a vague idea of what a reading is or an aura reading? Can you talk about that and kind of what you maybe offer with that?
Well,
We do a lot of professional readings that usually it's a psychic reading. I mean, that's what people seem to most want. And they'll come in
Mm,
with a question, like they might,
mm,
I've been working with a woman who's really, she has many different interests and many different options that she's looking at for her work.
mm,
And some of it has to do with the fact that she's living in a foreign country and there's some visa implications that are entering into it. So we're looking at all the energy for her. She brings in her question. Here are some of the different professions that I'm kind of looking at right now. And so I might energetically look at which one seems to be the best fit for her. Where does she really light up and really glow and
mm,
shine as a person?
mm,
When I energetically introduce that concept into her, when I look at it in context of her energy, like
mhm,
what really lights her up, what makes her look shiny and bright, and where's the most enthusiasm. And so I'll share that information with her. This is what I see.
right.
um, People come to us with all different kinds of questions, and what we do is we look at them as an energy body
Mm,
as opposed to looking at the physical. So our eyes will be closed and
mm,
we'll look at their energy like a little cookie cutter person on a screen,
mm,
because the energy body looks very much like the physical. And we'll see, where does it light up? What kind of information am I getting here? Where is there a blockage? Where are the openings?
mm, mm.
Um, it's that kind of thing. It's, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we can also give in a reading, we can also give people energy healings, and that's a different angle to look
Mm,
at, but you're actually going in and sort of moving energy around and helping it shift and clear to the extent that the person that you're working with will allow that,
mm,
helping them, let go of those blocks and beliefs. And maybe
right.
mom is hanging out in your field, and maybe mom's not even alive anymore, and you're like,
Yeah.
darn it, I want to face that. Sometimes that happens to us and we're not even aware of it. So you
Right.
can you can also help, mom move along and go walk her own path. So there's just a lot of different things that we look at and different ways that we can help people move energy. But often just coming in for a psychic reading, we are looking at the other person on a spirit to spirit level. My spirit's looking at your spirit, Andrew,
Mm,
and they're having a connection and a conversation. And then your spirit can respond to the information that I'm bringing in,
mm,
and you can just shift.
mm.
It's one way you can heal, is I don't have to really do anything except make you aware of the energies.
Right. It sounded like when you were mentioning the energy healing component, it sounds like you're giving them permission to release or whatever they're ready to let go in that session or that moment of, okay, now I'm ready to let this go. Does that kind of sound accurate? That they're
Mhm.
kind of doing the healing themselves. You're just kind of giving them permission. Does that seem
Yeah,
accurate, or?
you're Trish, go ahead, run with it.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that's really important is in a reading, you are looking at the present moment energy of that individual.
Hmm.
Yep.
So, and within that energy field, you do see, past lives might come up. You never know what's going to come up.
Hmm.
And that's where that see and say, because we teach you how to read. We use a reading triangle from your seventh to your sixth chakra, your sixth chakra being that clairvoyant space,
Hmm.
seventh. So you have your seniority. So you're seeing them out. And in a healing, that your question was, whenever we do a healing, we always ask,
Mhm.
like I might be reading you, Andrew, and just sharing information. Like maybe you come up. I mean, I know Katie talked about someone wanting to move, and maybe, I don't know necessarily what's going to show up,
Mhm.
right? I just recently had a woman who wanted to know how a meeting was going to go with
Mm,
a relative.
mm,
And she wanted to know how the aunt was going to react. And I'm like, I can't read other people because they're not here.
mm.
I'm not going to, like, Andrew, I wouldn't read your wife for
Got
you.
it. Yeah, right.
But she, and in the middle of the reading, I kept seeing 234.
Mm,
So I finally said, "Is something's going to happen around 2:34, 2:34?" And she's like, "No, the meeting's going to be at 5:30." But you just read the energy, and
mhm,
you're just reading information that's being shown to you. Um, Turns out the meeting didn't happen.
mm.
And when she went to her aunt to say, "Can we reschedule?" You know what her aunt said? "How
Mm.
about 2:34?" And it was 2 o'clock on March the 4th. And then it was 234. So I mean, there's an
Uh,
example of, you just, like Katie and I, when you read, and maybe you read sometimes,
mm,
you can't analyze what's coming forward. So in
right,
a healing, I know that your question was about healing.
right.
We always ask,
Mhm.
Yeah,
this is, would you like a healing on this? And it comes in all different ways and forms. And
right.
you're just, the more experience in our school itself. The first year, the clairvoyant, it's very structured how we do the reading. They read um, present,
Mm,
someone's present energy.
Mhm.
So Andrew, this is blah blah blah, present, and then they read two past lives,
mm,
and how it's really, past lives are really about why are they showing up in this moment for this person.
ah,
Mhm.
And then they read the 7 aura layers. So they start with
mm,
the first, and the aura layers are very associated with chakras, but we read aura layers first because they're cleaner and easier to read in some ways.
mm,
And then if there's time, they'll do, next steps. But one of the things that's important to know is we we only read what you show us. I'm not going to dig into, where I can see, like, I might be reading you, Andrew, and I'm like, oh, he doesn't want me to go there.
ah.
So
Mhm.
I don't even go there. That's not
Mhm.
karma I want.
Yeah, not even diving into the deepest, darkest secrets of.
No, but
Yeah.
then some people are wide open and they're just like, you're like, whoa. And some people, are testing you.
Mhm.
Uh,
They're not going to believe you until you get it right. And
right.
luckily, I think Katie and I now have enough experience where you just, you're so in that neutrality that, test me, I don't care, because you know we're not looking for validation, we're just
Right.
seeing and saying.
Yeah. That's that's so funny. The 234. That's because that's. It sounds like it's like in those situations where um it'd be easy to like to doubt it or second guess it or I'm not going to say this and
Yeah.
but to just have to step out of the judgment, have the neutrality, and just say, okay, here I'm just going to say it to you. I don't know what it means to you, and just here you go.
Yeah.
And then the funny you get the response, you're like, oh, okay.
Well, and have so many times they're like, like this woman's like, no, the meeting's at 5:30. I don't know what that means. But
Mhm.
2 days later, it makes
Right,
sense. Or
Mhm.
30 days later, we might hear from someone going, oh, that's what that was about.
right,
And sometimes they might not get it. But if we're sitting there trying to analyze, what does this mean? I don't know what this means.
yeah. I've
And we don't know what the information might mean to you as the individual. I
right.
remember way back, this reading that I knew about where the guy came in and we were reading in line. So in our school, sometimes you read in a line.
Mhm.
So you have more than one reader in front of you, a student. And the guy's like, flying toilet. And that's all he sees. That's what he, end of the reading, the person being read was like, oh my God, that's all I had to hear, flying toilet. I don't know what that meant. And the guy didn't hold it back. But, that's where that reading comes into play, where you just see and say, and
Right,
trust that intuition, and
right.
trust that what's presented to you.
That's so funny. I love hearing those type of examples. But you bring up a really big topic is trusting your intuition. Um, I think it sounds so simple, but can be so challenging. For myself, or I'm sure for a lot of people, right? Uh, I guess, do you find that in your classes and just the journey to getting to the point where you can say, you know what, I'm not gonna second guess this. I'm just gonna go with this. I'm gonna trust whatever spirit's telling me, and we'll see this through. What would you say about that?
Well, I would say the entire first year, that whole clairvoyant program,
Hmm.
that entire year is about learning to trust yourself. That's it. You're clearing energy the whole time. So, and you're giving readings. And so we require that people do 40 readings in a year. And it's a lot, but it can feel like a lot, I should say. But every time you give a reading to someone else, you're actually clearing your own energy because you have a resonance with that person, that so that when you start reading them, there's going to be some things that you're going to see that are also relevant or resonant for you. And so as you bring them to this stranger's attention and their spirit has an opportunity to shift, so does your energy have an opportunity, so does your spirit. We
Right.
call those matching pictures when you read someone who's got something going on that's similar to you. So so we throw them into the readings and then we tell them, do not ask for feedback
Ah,
in the readings. The validation will come from you. And the validation comes when you sit in a line with one or two other people and you give a reading and they start to see things and you go, oh my God, I can see that too. You're listening to them speak.
yeah.
And you're thinking, wow, they're seeing the same thing I am. That's cool. That's a form of validation. When the reading is over, the readee might say they can offer validation. We just don't want you to ask for it. And so at the end, the readee might say, I remember, giving a reading to a woman that was filled with color. And it was super interesting. It was like cerulean blue. And, it was crazy words like that, right? And
Yeah.
all of us, there were three of us in a line, and we're all getting these references to color. Well, it turned out she was a fine artist, and she had we were this was back when everything was in person, and she had stopped at the art supply store in Boulder on her way to the reading to pick up some oil paints, and one of them was cerulean blue,
Oh
you know
God.
so, so that's where you start to get the validation, and that's when you start to trust yourself. Or there was a time when I was a new animal communicator, communication reader, I guess, and I was reading this dog, and not only could I see this kangaroo, but I felt like I was the kangaroo, and I could feel how strong I was and how unbelievably muscular, my legs were. And I was bounding down this road. I never become the picture. I don't become the picture. It just doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
But in this case, it did, and it was super powerful. And I kept asking the dog, "Why is this relevant? I need to give the person something."
Right.
And the dog kept, bouncing down the road, and it was hot, and we were in Australia, and there was all this dust and the sun.
Uh,
And finally, I thought, okay, I feel like a fool, but I'm just going to say it. And I said it, and the dog, by the way, told me, the dog said, no reason. It was just so fun. So I said this to the woman, and before I even get it out of my mouth, she's laughing. And she said, my dog looks so much like a kangaroo and it runs through the grass that my friends keep telling me, you have to take a video of that and send it to like America's Funniest Pets.
uh,
So that's where the validation starts to come in. And there's a point at which you see something and you don't understand it, but you know enough to know
right.
that you can trust it. And that's where Trish and I are. We both, you have those moments where you're kind of rolling your eyes, but you just know,
Right.
just say it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
that's what I have to say about that.
yeah, and that trusting that whole intuition, outside the reading space, right? You get comfortable to recognize that, and in your own life, when you understand that sixth and seventh, where you can trust that intuition, it's such a beautiful gift. and to use it. Like recently, Katie and I did a new hire,
Mm.
and we had someone who knew what the job is, because Katie and I don't quite understand it. Interview and make sure. We had quite a few people come forward that wanted this job, and so
Mm.
we had someone making sure they knew how to do the job.
Sure.
And then Katie and I intuitively looked at each person energetically.
Ah.
And the person who did the interview was like, this person's great, and, loved her. We got strong no.
Mm.
And we didn't question it. We're just like, we both got a no.
Right.
So we moved on to the next person. So intuitively, like trusting that. Um, and people always expect that voice to come in. Like, I'm waiting for the big voice
Mm.
in intuition. And sometimes, for the most part, intuition almost, and I'm making a big generalization, but it's almost very calm and very just like present.
Mm.
It's not like if there's some anger or some emotion, it's probably more, your body telling you, or your analyzer going,
It's
wish.
louder.
I
Yeah, the intuition is subtle. You should tell, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you should tell your story about King Supers.
Well, for instance, one day I had my coat on, my shoes on, my purse. I was ready to go out, keys in my hand, and I stopped by my husband. I was going to the grocery store, and I just said, "Do you need anything?"
Mm.
And I just got this word of sit down.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't want to sit down, but it was just so, and it wasn't like sit down. It was just like sit down.
Yeah.
And I'm not one, like when I go to the grocery store, I just want to get it done.
Yeah. I'm the same way.
My coat on, my purse on, my keys in my hand, my shoes. So I go sit down, and my husband walks by, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I'm just sitting." And I'm like, "This is ridiculous. I'm gonna get up and go."
Mm.
And then he walks by, and in a sense, spirit sent him to say, "Play a ping pong game with me,"
Mm.
which we hadn't been playing. So it was, so eventually I get, it's time to go. I
Mhm.
get like, okay, go. Get in my car as I'm driving to my grocery store. Unfortunately, cop cars are just flying by. And unfortunately, that day was the day we had a mass shooting at my
Oh.
local grocery store. And Andrew, if I hadn't sat down, I would have timed it perfectly
Oh,
with,
wow.
with being there. And that is where all the work I've done, if anything, that moment was beautiful. I mean, once I
Right.
realized what had happened, and I didn't know anything was going on, I even tried to go the back way through all the armed guys. I'm like, can I just get back here? I'm just going to the grocery store. And they're just like, and
Yeah.
once I heard what happened, I just bawled. But I thanked
Right.
Spirit. I showed so much gratitude, and the ability that I cleaned off, and that I could trust my intuition.
Right.
Came in such a quiet sit down.
Wow. That's an incredible story. I mean, that's your intuition, like potentially saved your life. And um, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I do remember actually. That was it a couple years ago or something, or I think I remember hearing about that.
Just
Or was it
2 years
recent?
ago this fall.
Okay.
2020. Isn't that
Yeah.
terrible?
Oh, I think it's been just 2 years.
Yeah. I know it was fairly recent, I think. So I mean,
2020, I think. It
Yeah.
was it was anyways.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that shows the importance of trusting our intuition. So,
Yeah,
wow.
and that's like I said, that's the whole entire thing about the program, because if you can trust your intuition in a reading, then maybe you can trust your intuition in a situation, like Trish's, that's a pretty extreme example,
Sure.
but how would you like to have access to that kind of knowingness in every part of your life, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to make simple, even big decisions in your life, relying
mhm.
on your intuition, that could be pretty incredible. So with all of your, you know, the time you spent in meditation, or energy healing work and giving readings, getting read, guiding other people, being directors. What do you think up to this point has been kind of the more important thing that you've learned? It could be something super simple, to something bigger. There's no right or wrong here, but I'm just kind of curious up to this point, like what's kind of the big thing just that kind of just off the top of your head that comes up?
Well, one thing that comes up for me is the importance of amusement,
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
of how it just shifts energy. Trish and I are always laughing. When I started these programs, I was a very serious person, you guys.
Hmm.
I really was. And the students come in and they come in really serious. They want to get it right. They want to give a good reading.
Mhm.
Um, they don't want to make any mistakes. And I remember my animal communication teacher, like 15 years ago, said, somebody somewhere is getting a healing. Don't worry about it.
I like
And
that.
it's a place where I've really learned it's okay to make mistakes. And we're just, I mean, our first year, Trish, don't you think we just blundered through? We did a pretty good job. The center didn't close, but
Hmm. That's
but
good.
we made it up, and this is what Mary Bell told us would happen. She said, "You're just going to make it up as you go. Don't worry about it."
Mm,
So just being in amusement and being willing to make mistakes has been really helpful for me in a big way.
right. I like that.
Trish?
Nice.
Yeah. I, well, it's funny, Andrew asked me this question in an hour. I'd probably change it again, but
Yeah, I know.
I I think one of the crucial, and I wake up and I usually set these tools. Grounding.
Mm,
I mean, if anything else, grounding, and with amusement and all that other, and, gratitude and self-acceptance, that kind of stuff. But right now, grounding keeps coming up for me. You know,
that's yeah. I think I agree with that, especially even just for myself when you say that, because that's I know it's a very simple tool, but a very important one, a very powerful one. And
yeah,
it's funny. I'll share a quick story. Um, so I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and I moved to Chicago for art school. And I was there, and about second semester, my roommate finally opened up to me and said, "Hey, I'm into spirituality." And at that time, I didn't grow up religious. It was no religion, wasn't even really spiritual in the household. It was mainly like a little bit of astrology, and our house is very haunted. So that was kind of my exposure to the spiritual. So a lot of running away as a child throughout my house. Some spooky encounters, but yeah. So he opens up to me, and that's kind of where my spiritual journey kind of began. And my big thing immediately was I want to have an out of body experience. That sounds. Once I learned about spirituality, I was like, this is cool. I have to do that. But then, as I got into this type of work, the energy work, I then realized I'm already out of my body. So I need to learn how to get grounded in my body, and maybe I can learn that other stuff later on. But so I agree with you. That's the grounding is huge, and that's something
It's huge.
just in my day to day. Just like, am I grounded right now?
Yeah.
So
it changes so much. If I'm not grounded and say I get it into an argument, it creates a big it lasts longer, it
Mhm.
creates and one of the things we teach in our class and that I learned so importantly, like you just mentioned, when you're grounded, um, it's sometimes the first time people are in their bodies because their bodies might not be safe.
right,
They got a lot of pictures and all of a sudden they got to work through those pictures and they don't want to. So let's get out of our bodies.
right, yep,
Why be in this body? Because this is where your pain is.
right,
Mhm.
And so grounding isn't always fun in the beginning, but and that's what Katie talked about, just watching them clear some of that energy and be more comfortable in their bodies and grounding and then running energy. So And we always say you ground and set that intention. That's whatever's ready to be released will be released, or, different words like that.
Yeah.
But just being in your body. And then it's funny, Andrew, because one of our programs, so we have 2 years of, an undergrad. And when you graduate, you actually are ordained, because our umbrella, we're a church.
Hmm.
And then we have a year of grad work. And then if you want, you can do transmedium, which is all about being out of your body.
Mhm.
Nice.
But we won't let you take it until you're fully in your body and
Yep.
you got it. You're connected to your own wisdom. You're connected.
Right.
And then you can be 4 years in TM.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other things too. We, 1-to-1, right? Katie, is all spirit to
Yep.
spirit. So
Yeah, but the bottom line with everything we teach, you can take like, I don't know, 7 years of programs or something with us, is that you be grounded, you be in your body.
Right.
And otherwise you can't really do anything, because we
Right.
have these bodies. And if we don't include them,
What's
it
the point?
doesn't work. It's like the foundation for the spirit to go off and do its thing. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great segue. If you could talk maybe a little more about, your psychic school, Psychic Horizons Center, and it sounds like you mentioned some of the things you do offer. But is there anything that's, people that are listening that they're like, "Whoa, I didn't know psychic schools existed," and there's clairvoyant trainings and meditation and all this stuff. Maybe some of the upcoming classes or trainings you got, or how people connect with you if they're interested in this stuff.
Well, we definitely have a website,
Okay.
psychichorizonscenter.org,
Yeah.
which has all our calendars or all events. We probably have some, but our initial beginning class is called How to Heal Yourself.
Okay.
And it's basically, it can be a 6-week format or an accelerated one day. And we have one coming up May 1st,
May 1st. Yeah.
Monday at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're on Zoom. So all our classes are on Zoom. We have international, national, now that since COVID, we've gone Zoom world.
Hmm.
We don't have as many Coloradoans. But this How to Heal Yourself is a class where you learn tools and you learn how to hold your space and recognize what's your energy and what's other people's energy, and really understand that. And the tools you learn are tools that to this day I'm using, you use, Andrew, it sounds like,
Hmm.
that you use every day in every one of our classes.
Right.
So How to Heal Yourself is that class.
Okay. Excellent. And I'll make sure I put in the description below for at least YouTube. So we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and maybe Google. So at least in YouTube, or the other ones, I can link it, your school in the description below. So
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Anything else there, Katie?
Well, yeah, so that's the foundation, and that's 6 weeks long. And if you take the full class and not the accelerated,
Hmm.
it's 2 hours of instruction one time a week for
Hmm.
6 weeks. And then after that is the clairvoyant program, which is where we teach you how to really, you're using those tools that you've learned, and then you're clearing energies around specific topics for an entire year. So every week you're clearing different energies for yourself. Usually in trades with other people, but also in meditations just singly. And that's where you really learn how to trust your intuition. And that's the bottom line for all of our programs is, let's clear some stuff out. Let's get rid of your clutter that you've collected over your lifetime. And let's learn to trust yourself. And then from there, you might go to the graduate level program, which is also a year. And from there, you might go into TM, Transmedium Healing class. And that can last as long as 4 years, depending on your goals. And we also have a teacher's training. We have a minister's program because we are a church.
Hmm.
And then we have a lot of workshops, a lot of meditations, a lot of free offerings, readings, and things like that.
House healings, animal
House healing.
communication.
Ah, nice.
And I should also say, I don't know, Andrew, when this goes out or if it's out now, but we have a lot of our workshops are for anybody,
Okay.
taking how to heal. And we have one on Saturday called finding
Happiness.
happiness.
It's all about happiness.
Who doesn't want that? But
Right.
and it's being taught by Shelley, who's been doing this work for over
It's like 40 years. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
And so she's actually on our board of directors for Psychic Horizon Center. So she knew Mary Bell, who's one of the original
Oh, okay.
OG. They actually went to school with Michael Tamora. So
Oh, really?
they all
Yep.
came
Oh,
out
wow.
of the same program at the same time. So they're all buddies.
Wow. That was out
Yeah.
in California, right?
Berkeley,
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Louis Boschwitz
Yep.
in Berkeley.
Bostwick. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we offer, like Katie said, a variety. But
Yeah.
it always, besides the workshops, it always starts with the initial, let's
Mhm.
give you some tools
Yep.
Right.
and then
Awesome.
go from there.
Cool.
And the adventure. People are, like, this is better than therapy. But we're always careful because, classes are really an opportunity to run your energy.
Mhm.
We're careful as teachers not to have those runaway students that make it be about them, because we're all just, processing and learning.
Right.
I don't know why I said that, but I did.
No.
Well, because you needed to, evidently.
I guess so. Don't question. Just see and say.
See it,
Yep.
say it. But we have a lot of fun. We really do. We very much hold the energy of community and amusement. And we do. We have a good time, and we look after our students and help them when they need it. And if you can't afford a program, we'll help you figure out how to take it anyway. So
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Excellent.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then one of the things too, I know we keep adding.
That's okay.
You're never getting rid of us. But one of the things we also do, once a month, we encourage all our students to get energy checks, and we offer them really low cost. And it's to say, because I got to tell you, throughout that year, everybody will get triggered at some point. They'll be, like, energy will get thrown at me because they don't like what's happening. They're uncomfortable.
Right.
And, that's where we invite, so getting those energy checks to see what's happening, or, you get the people, I want to quit. I'm quitting. I can't, and having those energy checks, it's usually some picture that they're coming against, some resistance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not wanting to look, and then we invite them to, we have a whole staff of people that do energy checks. They're 30 minutes, and they get to run their tools and go, oh, I'm not grounded at all, like, now I can look at that picture. But we
Yeah.
there are times when you get triggered in class and you won't want to come back, or
Right.
for some reason you make an excuse of why you don't want to come to class that day, and that's usually the class that you should come to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because in that first year of the Clairvoyant program, you're the students come in all blurry, right? And so you're helping them clear away all that blur, all that clutter, all that stuff that they've collected. And sometimes they're moving energy that they have never ever looked at.
Right.
And so it can be kind of jarring to the body.
I imagine it was for myself, but I'm sure maybe you can relate, or just in your own students, the point where they can start to differentiate that. You mentioned some of the blurriness, or the things, the lies, or the things that are not them. And you said, like, kind of peeling the onion, they start to kind of discover, whoa, who am I, or what is my essence like? And that's kind of like, whoa, that's kind of an amazing thing, I'm sure, to watch unfold.
It is. Sometimes you can see it happening in a class. Somebody's face will just change, right?
Yeah.
It's actually the energy, has shifted, and you see them and they're like, wow, but yeah, I can't think what your question was. What was your question? I'm going unconscious, Trish.
That's okay. Well, I was going to ask, I always like to give my guests an opportunity, if there wasn't a question that I asked, if there's something, a topic maybe I didn't get to that you really want to speak on, this is a good opportunity to do that. If you don't have anything you want to touch on, that's totally as well. But if you do, it's a big opportunity to something maybe I missed.
Well, I think I want to say that people often come to us because maybe they're empaths and they've been picking up everybody else's energy for their lifetime.
Mm,
And they're aware of it. They might be aware of it, they might not be aware of it. I just furiously collected the whole world's energy for 40 some years before I figured out, oh, this is actually a problem. So people come to our programs who feel kind of out of control of their lives in some way. They might have an understanding of it, they might not. When I started this program, I knew my life was not under my control. I didn't know why. I learned why when I started taking the classes. I was a person who mostly reacted to my circumstances instead of acting. And that was kind of the overall vibe that I went in on. But students come to us because they're very, very empathic. They come to us because they feel out of control of their lives. They come to us because they have energy that visits them, that comes and messes with them in some way that they're aware of, and they want it to stop. They want to have control over that. We have students coming because they're tired of reading every person and every situation they encounter. We have some scientists and some very left brain type of characters. I always have to stop and think, who come because they know there's something else besides that linear, methodical kind of. So people come for many reasons. Some people come to us because they just know something ain't working and they're trying to figure out how to get the train back on the tracks.
yep.
So just to give listeners an idea of, we attract everybody for so many different reasons. Some people are just curious. They're like, ooh, all things psychic, all things metaphysical. They're just excited.
Mhm.
So we see a lot of different people.
And we believe everybody has these capabilities. We kind of
Yeah.
got to dust them off. Some people,
Yeah.
I just have this analogy in a sense, back in the day when you went to art class, there were those kids that were brilliant at art, and then no one really taught you. Like,
Right.
there wasn't teaching how to do art and Andrew, you might have been brilliant. You said you went to art school, but I'm thinking, in a way, that's how I approach. And I love, like, both Katie and I have creative outlets. I do some great art, especially when I'm in my intuitive sense. But in a sense, when I first came to Psychic Horizon Center, I was that kid that didn't know how to draw, like,
Mhm.
teach me. And I was like, is this really true? Can other people do this?
Mm,
I don't know if that's true, even though I've had people show me in my lifetime. So it's kind of like, finally someone's is, at one point we were always considered, we're for the beginners. Come in to that first door and, join us. Learn how to draw.
I like that.
But learn how to read,
Right.
or trust your intuition, trust your clairvoyancy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know when Mary Bell and Hope named the center Psychic Horizon Center in 1994, they really questioned using psychic in their business
Yeah.
name.
Right.
And, psychic to them is of spirit,
Right.
the true, of spirit. And they stuck with it. And I got to say, when I first started going to this school, I'm like, why'd they ever put psychic on there? I don't want to tell, where are you going? I'm going to Psychic Horizon Center.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah,
so
I've heard people in the past that would so they wouldn't alert anybody where they're actually going. Oh, just it's going to a yoga class. Going to yoga.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's such
I
a
think.
that charge on that word, and
There
it's
Yeah,
is.
it is. And over time I've uncharged it for me.
right.
I
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still, and we still have those students who come in, who can't tell their families they're doing what they're doing, and
Mm.
Right.
and we're just that sanctuary, that space for people to just relax and play with us in this psychic, metaphysical, spiritual, world. Run your energy, see what that feels like. And it might not be for you. We have many paths,
Yeah.
and this is a path.
And bottom line too, that what we teach is really practical. Like the, when you think of a psychic, you think of, I always think of a woman in a long skirt with a tam. I think of Stevie Nicks with a crystal ball. I'm just going to be honest,
Yeah,
right?
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, what we teach is completely practical. It's just going to get you more down to earth.
Mhm.
And I don't think people, really know that, because that's not, it's a word that people have an association with. So anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how that's. I think most people think it's the other way. Like we're going way out there. That's and then it's actually, hey, we're coming down here.
You got it. Yeah.
Andrew, the other thing we should mention is
Sure.
we have healing clinics and
Uh-huh.
TM clinics, and we have student reading spaces. Undergraduate student reading spaces are actually free.
Mm,
They happen 3 times a week.
mm,
And we also have graduate readings, which are $35.
mm.
These are all both student readings, and it's really, a lab for our students, but it gives people an opportunity. And we often, when you sign up for a How to Heal Yourself course, you get we're
Oh,
like, sign up for a reading so you can experience what that is. And
right.
so many people come in and they're so nervous to get that reading if it's the first time. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, I remember when I first started, we teach to close your eyes, because then your optical nerve is huge, and if you read with your eyes open, you get all these other distractions.
Right.
So we read with our eyes closed, and I can't tell you, and readings are an hour long in our students. And how often I would open up my eyes and be like, holy cow, this person is totally different than what I remember when I closed my eyes an hour ago.
Yeah.
So we have healing clinics. We have a women's healing clinic, specifically for people who identify in female bodies.
Mhm.
We have a meditation church service. So we also have a lot of, people can experience it just by, we also have our TM healing clinic, which are 20-minute long intensive. Often someone's channeling a being,
Nice.
and really seeing you spirit to spirit. Well, I guess they're all spirit to spirit, but TM, and those are $20. So they're all pretty
Okay.
reasonable, but it's a fun time to just try out things, or if you have a healing request, to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a lot of offerings there.
We
That's awesome.
do.
And you're sounds like you transition. You were in person and then now fully online. Is that kind of where? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's psychichorizonscenter.org, the website. So check that out. It'll be in the link below. I just want to say it was a pleasure to have you both here with me today, and just to speak on these different topics. I enjoy meeting new people and talking spirituality, and this was a lot of fun for me. So
Excellent. Well, thanks for having us. And as Katie said earlier, welcome back soon to Colorado.
I
Yes.
know. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to move. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you both of you for just being yourselves. So, everyone, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Language of Spirit show. We'll see you next time. Take care.